performing content. Joining us to discuss the whole landscape, it's all different now, former TiVo CEO, NBC, former NBC executive Tom Rogers. And we should say happy anniversary.
Happy
30
anniversary.
years. You remember that
30
day,
years
huh?
ago today. I was up really early to have my team and I launch CNBC, and proud as hell as to what's become of it. Still a great trivia question. What does CNBC stand for? You can stump an awful lot of people with Consumer News and Business Channel. That isn't what people would first guess.
No, we've used a lot of different names for it through the years for the CNBC, but that was the original, right? Yep.
So, Tom, you know, it is a different landscape right now. We just got those Netflix earnings. We've got the new Disney streaming service out. I sort of like the Vanity Fair headline. Disney has built its streaming service to be a Netflix zapping Death Star. Is that true, or is it all hyperbole?
I think the Disney exuberance has gotten a little over the top. It's instructive to go back and think about networks breaking into the cable business as we did 30 years ago. When we were breaking into the cable business, the cable industry resisted us like crazy, but our competitors were pretty small companies: Ted Turner, Turner Broadcasting, Rainbow Programming. What Disney, as a network company, cable company now too, is going up against are absolute behemoths with Amazon and Netflix and Facebook. These are companies with massive resources, and it's a very different day than when the networks got into cable. Now, having said that, all the networks got into cable big time, and most of the cable networks are owned by broadcast networks today. So that's a case in point that those transitions can be done. On the other hand, what Disney did, what we did back then, was going from one B2B model, distributing through broadcast affiliates, to another B2B model, distributing through cable companies. What Disney is now doing is transforming from a B2B model to a B2C, business-to-consumer model. That is a much, much trickier transformation. And I think trying to make it sound as if Disney has that transformation in the bag is getting way ahead of things.
Well, I mean, the optimists would argue that adoption rates are different than they were when cable came along, right? Because of the technology, certainly with 5G, and that the soil's been aerated in ways that you can have multiplayer participation in a hurry. Do you not agree with that?
Oh, I do think there's plenty of room as the streaming market develops, but just remember how far Netflix is ahead. In one quarter, they added more subs than Disney said ESPN's likely to have in 5 years. In 1 year, they will have added more subs than Disney Plus is likely to have in 5 years. In a year and a half, they added more than an entire HBO. So when people start talking about Netflix's second quarter subs looking a little weak, let's step back and put all that in a little bit of perspective here. They've won, they're out there, there's room for others, but it's not a Disney Netflix story. The story is Disney against the decline of its own legacy business, and can it move into streaming fast enough to deal with that deterioration? That is a much bigger story and not one that we've seen much focus on at all. Certainly Vanity Fair has missed that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, not people focus perhaps as much on ESPN subs still coming down. Now, ESPN Plus, which you mentioned, is not seen as a replacement for ESPN. They're still sticking with the old model on ESPN. But your point's a good one. At the same time, though, Tom, I mean, you're talking about Disney with incredibly deep brands, incredibly deep connections with the consumer already. And they are talking about having 90 million Disney Plus subs by fiscal year 24. That's not an insignificant amount. And it's not going to cost them as much as Netflix, you could argue, because they've got all these brands already. They're making the movies at the movie studio already, which go immediately then to the online platform. And so you could argue that it may be a more profitable model over time.
Well, that's clearly the story that has been propelling all the optimism about Disney. But let's not confuse some great executives. Bob Iger, great executive. Kevin Mayer, who hasn't gotten much play at all, great executive. And great brands, and great global brands, with what they have to do to become a global brand. I maintain that while Disney Plus will be a very interesting global brand, ESPN, by their own admission, ESPN Plus, isn't going to be global. And the big underreported story, David, you got to dig into this one,
okay,
is how much does Comcast have its thumb on Disney being able to take Hulu globally, because everybody talked about, well, AT&T sold its interest back to the partnership. Okay, that partnership has governance rights, and Comcast now owns a third. And I would be extremely surprised if Comcast is going to allow that to happen without some massive deal. They own the Disney programming rights in Europe. And for Comcast to allow Disney to expand Hulu globally is a big question mark. I even think it's a question mark. Been a lot of talk on this set. Hey, wait till Disney packages ESPN Plus with Hulu, with Disney Plus. That bundle they got a lot of leverage on, and that'll recreate something of the cable bundle. If they could do that, that's interesting. I've negotiated a lot of joint venture type agreements between companies, and I would be also extremely surprised if Disney had a unilateral right to take Hulu and package it with its other services to unilaterally benefit itself to the detriment in any way of the partnership service without Comcast having a large voice in that. That's another really big underreported issue.
You're right, and it's an important point you're making, I think, and one I will look into. I mean, Disney, to your point, has not said that they're going to take Hulu internationally, but they have said that they're looking at it or considering it. Of course, they see 2/3 of Disney Plus being international by year 5, Tom. So it clearly is a big ramp for them to run internationally, where all the subs are being added. I mean, look at Netflix, how many subs they added internationally versus what's going on domestically.
And that has to be part of the transformation of the company. You have to go global. Disney Plus alone carrying that transformation. Remember, even if they get the subs that they're talking about with Disney Plus in the United States, and ESPN Plus, how many subs are they going to lose here? The subs that are losing here as a bundle probably get $15 to $17 a month from cable operators. You're talking about one service at $6.99, another service at $4.99. Even if they are able to package those in some way, the loss of what they are going to incur in legacy cable and satellite subs versus what they pick up here isn't a one-to-one translation. You're going to have to do much better than their own sub-projections to deal with that linear decline, unless the linear decline is less severe than many think. And I would recommend anybody reading Todd Younger, Bernstein, who has done excellent, excellent work on just how bad that linear deterioration could be when a recession hits really bad. And you've got to put all that in context before you get too excited about the transformation.
So, Tom, I just finally wanted to ask you about the pricing, because now we've got a lot more competitors in the game, and they're all priced at very different points. Netflix raising its prices, Hulu cutting its prices, Disney coming in lower than people expected at $7 per month. Ultimately, do you think that's going to matter for consumers when they make their choices and figure out just how many of these internet TV services they want?
Yes, price will make a difference, and cord cutting is a lot about price and seeing value in skinnier bundles of pay $40 to $50 for a bundle of channels rather than $100 and add some streaming services. I agree with Reed Hastings. I don't think the others coming in and offering services is going to really affect the price value perception of Netflix, because of how much original programming they are producing and how much they will continue to produce. I think that the top 10 programs on Netflix are all originals. 21 of the top 25 are originals. And by virtue of that, the perceived value is huge. Nobody at Disney spending a couple $2 billion in original programming is not going to make a dent there. Do I think some of the others, your second streaming service, your third streaming service, make a difference? Particularly when Amazon is effectively free and is a gargantuan service in its own right. Others coming in now, whatever their price is, although I think it was very smart where Disney put its pricing, it's gonna be a consumer issue for sure. Going back to the Consumer News and Business Channel, 30 years. Mark Hoffman, president for half of that time, in and of itself a major milestone.
Yes, it is. All right, good for you. A little nice
good shameless plug for all of us.
Too.
Tom Rogers, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Former TiVo CEO, and of course,